You have to be able to weather through. I told you that I had a bad experience applying teachers. So that's my failure. That's where I failed. That's the only time that I remember that I could have got stuck forever. But I managed to pull out of it. I weathered through.
It's good to be back.
So,
feeling like home now.
He has said something important.
Last time I was here, I was a little bit fatter.
If you borrow money from banks to do business, make sure you pay back.
I suspect it's because you guys have had a long day. Yes? Yeah, I was joining you on the day because I was listening online. Can I ask everybody to just stand up for a second? Let's just stand up and refresh ourselves. Let's just stand up and refresh ourselves. Talk to the person next to you. Tell them you look good. I'm lying, but you look good. And if nobody said it to you, they're just jealous. They're just jealous. Talk to the other person next to you. Tell them one interesting fact about you that nobody knows. One interesting fact about you that nobody knows. Take a seat. Why are you gay? That guy's my favorite. I was at NBS today. I was hoping to meet him. Why are you gay? I don't think he knows how big he is. I don't think he understands. Like he's an international sensation. I even know the words to the whole interview. We bring you another gay rights activist. With that Ugandan accent. You guys speak like you come from Mars. It's funny. Mr. Should I call you Mr.? All right, let's have some fun, everybody. Can I get a sense of the room? How many of us here are entrepreneurs? Hands up if you're an entrepreneur. You run your own business. Yeah, great. I've prepared my session for you guys. Thank you, Harrison. I've prepared my session for you guys. I've prepared a whole host of thoughts. Here's what success for me looks like over the next few minutes that we are together. First, that I might leave you as much offended as I do inspired. So I'm hoping that I'm going to say something that you find offensive, say something that challenges your thinking, say something that pushes you perhaps a little bit beyond where you're operating at now. Second, I like to think of myself as a how guy. I've been in this business for way too long to know that you can really impress people by telling them what to do, but the most important thing is to tell people how to do it. And so I've prepared for yourselves here sufficient material of the thing to do when we leave this room. Is that okay? Let me tell you why this is important. Because you will leave this room. You'll go back into the real world. You'll go back into running your own lives, your own businesses, your side hustles, the job that you've got. And then typically what happens, this has been my experience, is we leave the room feeling inspired until life hits us. And when life hits us, we default. We default back to our old behaviors, our old habits, our old patterns of thought. And so for me, what is important is that we leave this room with a what to do. This means if you don't have a pen and paper, make sure that you've got one, just so you can take some notes, particularly towards the middle part of what I've prepared for us here today. And then third is I have been now for a while. I was hoping my brother Katuka would have helped me with this, but he's failing at his job. I've been now for a while hunting for a Ugandan wife. And we've prepared a whole host of material. We've got my CV ready, but for whatever reason, I just can't ever seem to get one good enough. They either don't know or praise the Lord, or something is always wrong in Uganda somewhere. I'm just saying. Although somebody did say to me, you must be careful because women in Uganda are very... Anyway, let's move on. So... Let's move on. Guys, show me my deck. Let's get started. This is a whole host of stuff that my team has prepared on about me. You guys know who I am. You know what I've done. You know that the good Lord has been very gracious to me. I must tell you, it's a true story, Anthony. This year, 2024, 22 years in this business, and without question, I think I've had my best year yet. Without question. Honestly and truly. Like, we won the best podcast. We won one of the top 10 podcasts in Africa. We won one of the top 5 podcasts in South Africa. I just won the Emmy Africa Award. I won the Paul Harris International Rotary Leadership Award. I won the Africa Achievers Excellence Award at the British House of Lords in the UK. Then I got to address the British House of Lords in the UK. And that's probably just been over the past, 6 months. I can't tell you what happened in the first 6 months. It really has been that year. And I think, this is why I'm telling you this, I think it's because we started this year with me speaking here in this exact hall in Uganda at my brother Daniel's event. So I'm glad that we get to end it the way that it started. I'm glad we get to end it the way that it started. All right, let's get going, everybody. This is, turn the music off now, thank you. Where's the tech team? Thank you. This is what I want to talk to you about today. When I was preparing for the session after we had our call, I was thinking about what conversation might I bring to this that might really help simplify the challenges that most entrepreneurs have with their businesses. And in our next book, which was supposed to launch on the 14th of December, but we're traveling, so we're launching it in January next year. In our next book, Ground Zero, we talk about this problem called the Pink Panther problem. All of you here, I imagine, are familiar with Pink Panther, but I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Pink Panther in a moment. First, if any of you have heard me speak before, you know that I love defaulting to numbers. I'm a numbers guy, I'm a finance person. So I tend to see the world in either statistics or graphs. But brace yourself, I've got, I think, about 7 or 8 graphs and about 12 slides that have got some statistics. Which brings me to the creatives in the room. Where are the creatives here? If you're like in the creative arts, you do fashion, you social media, where are the journalists? Where are the journalists in the room? Okay, I need all of you to do me a favor. Take your right hand and put it over your left chest. If you're a lady, squeeze a little bit. I'm kidding. And I need you to repeat after me. Repeat the following. I swear I will not panic. Thank you. It's generally what happens with people. The minute they see a number or a graph, they just go into a tiz. What I thought I'd do first, Anthony, is I'd get us started talking about some trends of entrepreneurship in the world. And what we've done here is we looked at the Entrepreneurial Spirit Index by generation. What this does is it references the potency might not be the correct word. It references the ubiquity of the entrepreneurial spirit by different generations. I need to issue a few disclaimers here. First, when we talk about these generations, Gen Zs, Millennials, Gen Ys, Baby Boomers, etc., this is an awfully American concept. A lot of the data is based on the Americas. However, as the world is malluing itself into kind of a singularity of thought, driven in part by those rectangular devices that light up when you touch them, that some of you are pointing at me now, called phones, we have become a universe of one. In other words, our cultures are transmitted more and more because we're all consuming the same social media, except, of course, if you're in Uganda, because some of it is banned. I know there's security here, so I'll say no more. We're going to move on. Very nice. Because I want you to invite me back. You know a joke is awkward when nobody laughs. And somebody's like, does he know what he is doing? Great. So have a look at this. This is entrepreneurial spirit by very high, high, moderate, and low by generations. And you notice that for a lot of you here in the room who are Gen Zs, the largest proportion of you is on the high. For the millennials in the room, the largest proportion again. In fact, it's equal between very high and high. For the Gen X's, it begins to drop, concentrates itself on that very high. And then for the baby boomers, you notice that it's almost predominant on the very high. Why is this important? Because when all of us here think about entrepreneurs, we tend to have an idea of who the entrepreneur is. It's a young person who's dropped out of school and started some sort of technology company or some sort of influencer online. But actually the literature tells us that entrepreneurship as a spirit is high across generations. This should be liberating, especially to those of us in the room who are older. In other words, it's not too late to start. That urge that you're feeling to get into business is necessary and natural. In fact, the latest literature now released says that the average age of a startup founder in the world today is not this person who was sold in movies. It's actually well over the age of 40 years old. Just think about what I just said to you. Because the narrative we see every day is, businesses started predominantly by these young people in their 20s. And that is true. But the average age is above 40. That should liberate those of us in the room who are older. I'm quarter to 40 myself. So, I'm 39. I turned 40 years old in 3 months' time. But I know I'm Zulu and good looking, so I look like 22. So that's the first thing I wanted to share with you. Now this is important, and this is for yourselves. We looked at the amount of capital and funding that goes into different markets. Then we looked at the amount of capital and funding in the startup space that goes into Uganda specifically. And we did this over a 3-year period. And what do you notice? You notice what we call the bell curve upside down. So I'll distribute it to you the following way. This is funding in thousands of US dollars. And you notice that there's more funding going into startups, even here in Uganda, between 2020 and 2022. Some of you here will know what I'm talking about. You know somebody who's participated in a USAID or UNAID, when they were here, program, or UKAID program. Or you know somebody who's received some grant funding or has raised some angel investment, for instance. You know somebody like this who's participated in a Techstars or something like this. They've actually raised some funding. Some of you here also know somebody who's received some funding from a sort of a CSR function of a bank or an insurance company that's operating in the country. For me, what I find interesting is not necessarily this graph, which is that there is more money going into the ecosystem, but this you should find interesting, that the money is going towards fewer businesses. Let me tell you why that's interesting. It's interesting because it tells us two things. First, the ecosystem is maturing. And second, the risk appetite of the investors is changing. It means that investors are looking for businesses that are better developed, with more traction, and a proven business case. Some of us have been around this business for long enough to have seen times when you could raise money with a PowerPoint presentation and some decent English. Those days are over. Investors today are asking for more. And the question becomes, if the investors are asking for more, how do we show up and how do we deliver more? So I want to challenge everybody in this room to dream bigger and to aim for more. Now let's get back to that original thesis of ours, this Pink Panther problem. I want to tell you a little bit about the history of Pink Panther. You'll find this interesting. So Pink Panther actually comes from a movie in the 1960s, in 1963. It's credited to a man called Blake Edwards. Those of you here who are old enough remember when Pink Panther was the cartoon. The younger people might know Pink Panther as the original image that I showed. It was composed by a man called Mancini. And if you think about it, here's why we call it the Pink Panther problem. First, the tune is very recognizable. And second, the tune sounds very simple. That's the tune. When you see successful business people, the likes of which you saw here earlier, across the many panels that they were in, and you observe them from a distance, and you say, oh, he runs a beverage business, or he runs a nightclub, or she's in media, or she's a journalist. Oh, that's easy, I can do that. What you're doing is you're committing the sin of the Pink Panther problem. You hear the tune, and you understand the tonality, and you begin to think, because it looks easy from the outside, it must be easy when you do it. So let's imagine all of us here in this room wanted to perform the article of Pink Panther. What would that look like? Well, first, it wouldn't be possible for you to do it alone, unless you were maybe playing the main tune and you were using a saxophone. But if you really wanted to play the whole article, you would need an orchestra. An orchestra? An orchestra. Have a look. So here's the question. When you listen to the article of music, who do you credit for the act? Is it the lead, the saxophonist who's playing? Or is it the rest of the orchestra that's waiting for their turn? You can watch that video on YouTube. It's a 6-minute long video. And immediately after the lead finishes playing the opening lead, what we call in music the reprise, the opening stanza, the rest of the orchestra joins. Or do you credit the conductor, who has the courage to turn away from the audience so that they might be able to lead the orchestra? Do you credit the composer who wrote the score? Any of you here who've played musical instruments know that music looks like it's just coming from the gut, but when you play it, there's an article of notation written in front of you. It's called the score. Who do you credit for the genius? The answer is everybody. And that's the difficulty with building a scalable business, is you want to be everything. The conductor, the composer, the player, the trumpeter. Some of you are even your own audience. You put up the post and then you comment on your own post. And then you like yourself. And then you reshare what you've liked for yourself. And then you download yourself and you WhatsApp yourself to yourself. Hear me and hear me now. If you want to build anything worth building, you can't do it alone. Impossible. Trust me, I've tried. So, my theory is this. Entrepreneurs don't build businesses. That's not what we do. Entrepreneurs build teams. Teams build businesses. That's the trick. This deck that you're seeing here, I can assure you, doesn't have a single spelling error in it. I can assure you that throughout the deck, you're going to see a hue of orange, which, if you zoom in on the camera now, is the same hue of orange on my VT on my shirt. It's the same hue of orange on my VT in my jacket. Comrades, that does not happen by mistake. It's because there is an intentional process to color code everything we do. There is a team executing on the work. Now, what you see is Vusi here standing. What you're not aware of is I'm an amalgam of 60 people in the organization who make sure that I get to stand here. Just the fact that when I'm speaking, I need my very well-grained African cup of coffee doesn't happen by mistake. So, what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time talking about how to build a business that builds, how to build a team that builds the business. If you learn this skill, I promise you now, I guarantee you, every single opportunity you look at, every market you look at, every business you want to get into begins to change in complexion, because you don't ask yourself questions like, could I make money? Could I get customers? You begin to ask yourself questions like, could I build a team good enough to compete with the best team in the market at the moment? How do we build teams? So we're going to spend some time talking about that. Already told you a little bit about Mr. Mancini, who composed this Pink Panther song. So let's get into doing some work now. I'm going to jump through this very quickly. What are the other things that might look easy? Here's the first one. Sushi. Who here's ever had sushi? Right. Who here's ever made sushi? Made it? Was it any good? We don't know for sure. Maybe let's ask the question this way. To whomever it is that ate it, are they still alive? I want to challenge you when you leave here today to try and make sushi. I've tried it. I've actually tried it. It's very, very difficult. Just the ability of cutting the little bits into these little bits and then mixing the rice into the little bits. Very, very complex. Hard to do, but looks easy from the outside. It's just sushi. What else might be hard to do? Well, this is a building built, would you believe it, in the year 1929. It's an architectural building based in Barcelona. The materials used at the time were ahead of their time, but today we look at them in 2024, what is now 105 years later, and it looks contemporary and it still works. It's got a beautiful float-in pool, an infinity pool inside it. It's even got air conditioning that was thought about in 1929 that ventilates the system today without using a single watt of electricity and power, even in the heat of Barcelona summers. Crazy, right? From the outside, all you see are just concrete and marble slabs put together. But there is a process to architecture it. What else might be hard to do? This was my third and final example. Does anybody know about haiku poetry? Any of you here read haiku poetry? Yes? There's always one nerd in the room. Any of you here, gentlemen, any of you here who are dating? Gents, if you're dating or you're single, in fact, put up your hand, gents, if you're single. Even you. She's asking you to lift your hand for a reason. Lift it. Hands up for the single gents. Take my advice. Start reading some haiku poetry. It'll change your dating game, man. Change your dating game. You come out with all sorts of dangerous lines. Dangerous lines. So genius and mastery makes things look easy. Let's talk now a little bit about scaling. If you want to scale your business, the first thing you need to do is you need to know how to build a business model. Make note of this. We spend a lot of time in our firm working with entrepreneurs and helping them understand how to build their businesses. And the first thing we try to focus our time and attention on is how do you build a business model? Now here's the thing. I'm about to share a few things that you will look at them and go, oh yes, but I know this. The test is not whether or not you know. The test is, do you do what you know? So you can know, and that's fine, but are you doing the things you know to do? So the first element of building a business model is you need to do client segmentation. In our firm, we use a model of doing business models. Don't mind Harrison. He's doing the thing I told you about earlier, making sure that I'm refilled with my cup of coffee. See? Pink Panther. Any of you here who run businesses, have you done actual client segmentation? I love this, Anthony. I ask people, have you done client segmentation? They go, yes, I've done it. Then I say, show it to me. It says, my clients are all in Kampala. Oh, shit. That's not client segmentation. Here's how you know when you've accurately segmented a client. Here's how you know. If you can describe the needs and wants of that client at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we use this in our firm. We call it the 3 a.m. test. I can tell you about a follower, for instance, of Vusi Thembekwayo on social media at 3 a.m. in the morning. I know who they are. I know how they think. I know what kind of material they like to consume. I know even where they like to consume that material because we've done adequate segmenting of our clients. So spend time doing client segmentation. Some questions that you can ask yourself. Where are they? Second question you should ask yourself, what single pain do they have? Third question, how much are they willing to pay to alleviate that pain? These are simple questions, but when you begin to answer them, you begin to understand what are the segmentations of your client. So that's the first thing. Second is for that client, what's going to be the value proposition? So I know who you are. What am I going to offer you for value? And how am I going to offer it to you for value? Third is how am I going to reach you? Distribution channels. These three elements alone should focus you and your time on who, what, where. I'm willing to bet that 80% of us in this room probably haven't done this exercise. I'm willing to bet. This, of course, precludes those of us who work in large corporates, because in large corporates you've got marketing departments and business development who spend their time doing this. But for most of us who run our businesses, you're so busy running the business and selling your products, you haven't actually thought about the accurate client segmentation. I just had a meeting today with a young lady who operates here in Uganda. She'd reached out to my team. And so what I like to do when I travel into countries, I like to spend some time talking to entrepreneurs operating in that space, because I can read the McKinsey reports that tell me about your country, but when I talk to somebody and look into the white of their eyes, I actually begin to understand what's happening in the environment. She's in a waste management business. I can't tell you more, obviously, for disclosure reasons, but she's in a waste management business, and she was telling me about her business and how long she's been running her business and who her client segmentation is. And then I said to her, so when you say you sell to procurement, who in procurement do you sell to? Do you sell to the head of procurement? Do you sell to the procurement department? Or do you sell to the person who's assisting the head of procurement? Who do you sell to? When you go and meet your clients, who do you talk to? Is it the decision maker or the division head? I'll give you another example. Think about it this way. If I run this entire establishment and all of you here have waters that you are drinking, there is somebody who works in this establishment whose job it is to buy that water. That's how it landed on your table. So, if I were to want to sell my water to Serena Hotels, do I go and talk to the person in procurement who buys the water, or do I go and talk to James, who's the general manager? Who makes the decision? Now, what a lot of us do is you immediately go to Anthony because he runs the bank. You go to James because he runs the hotel, not knowing that the person who runs the institution probably doesn't make buying decisions. Doing accurate client segmentation must be so specific that you know exactly who makes the buying decisions. I'll give you guys another example. I'm cognizant of our time. Check this out. I'm a dad. I'm a father of 3 unbelievable kids that I know about. No, you must always qualify. We don't know also. But I'm a father of 3 unbelievable kids. My oldest, Vusi, is 14 and he's my height. You should just see this kid. He plays junior NBA. He is incredibly athletic. I must tell you, unbelievably athletic. So what I do now is I play ball with him and we shoot some ball and hoops in front of the house. And at the beginning of the year, I could keep up with him. We'd play a little bit of ball. We'd play like 30 minutes. He's become so fit that his six-pack has a six-pack. So now we start trying to play ball, and I'm realizing this boy is he's not just fit, but he's running circles around me. Now here was the thing. When he was younger, he could run circles. If you try to run circles around me, I use the size of my body and I dominate him. Just do this and he can't get around me. Now he's my height. He's got a wingspan, my wingspan. That changes the dynamics of the game. So here's what I do now. When we start playing a game, I used to first play defense. Now I'll play attack and he goes on defense. Boom, boom, boom. I get 1, 2, 3 hoops in. Once I'm done, I go, I pulled my hamstring. Hamstring injury, game over, I win. My youngest, Ngobi, is 7. I just turned 7. And I'm told by my kids that I'm the most biased to him. I don't agree, but what do I know? Now, between my youngest, Ngobi, and my daughter, Amahle, who, don't tell her I told you this, can get anything she wants out of dad. This is a true story. She just goes, Dad, and I go, yes, yes, whatever you want, yes. Dad will buy you a yacht. Absolutely, no problem. So my youngest, Ngobi, loves fast food. It's a real problem. And it's my fault because when he was younger, he would ask for fast food all the time, and I just let him have it. So when we're on the drive home, we go past various fast food joints. We go past the Burger King, go past the KFC, go past the McDonald's. There is a plethora of brands. Which one does he choose? He constantly chooses the McDonald's. Why? Because they have a kiddies meal which has a toy. Think about what I just said to you. McDonald's understood that the access to my wallet was through my son. So they didn't market their products to me. They didn't even market a burger to me. They marketed a toy to my 7-year-old. Client segmentation. You get it? If you don't get it, care about it. Forget about it. Then the next element you want to know is how do you do customer relationships? Customer relationships. Entrepreneurs in the room, can I get a sense in the room? How many of you here have a CRM system that you're running in your business? Big problem. By the way, WhatsApp is not a CRM system. An actual CRM system. When you leave here, go to Zoho.com. I constantly recommend Zoho. The head of Zoho in Africa is a friend of mine. They do a 30-day trial where you can trial their CRM system to actually use it. You have to make sure every single client, customer, purchase, and contact detail is not just sitting on your phone. It's got to sit on a system. All of these help you with the customer and how to make money from them. But a business model is not a revenue model. So what makes a business model is not just where the money comes from, but also where the money goes. So what are the items of expenditures you should think about? First, each of these customers, from a value proposition perspective, must make you actual money, revenue streams. But for every single revenue stream, there's a client-facing process. And for every single client-facing process, there is a cost associated with that. Novice entrepreneurs spend all of their time talking about where the revenue is going to come from. They spend very little time talking about how they're going to deliver that revenue, and almost no time talking about what is the cost to deliver that revenue. This is true even for content creators, because your time is worth something. Your time is worth something. If you just get these steps right, and you actually take the time and you go through them intentionally, you can build a business model. You can build a business model. When we're done, I'm going to give you guys a QR code that if you scan it, will take you to a questionnaire that you can run through all of these 7 parameters. It's 49 questions, 7 questions per section, and it's all of these 7 parameters, and at the end of it, it'll deliver for you your own business model. Then you actually do the work. So that's why I said, didn't come to impress, came to teach. So we want to be able to understand that scaling a business is a multifaceted thing. Here are 4 things you need to think about when you're scaling a business. First, whose job is it to ensure that the quality of focus is in the place, that the processes deliver that quality of focus, and that's internal. And external is whose job is it to ensure you build your team as well as you expand your markets. Let's get into that a little bit. We did some work in the firm to understand how many clients have actually scaled their business. And not just how many have scaled their business, but in addition to this, where do clients get stuck? And I'll show you very quickly. The first place clients get stuck in scaling their business is synthesizing their operations. Don't worry, I'll explain, and I will give you the templates and tools. Synthesizing their operations is simply this. It's writing the score for that performance article of music that you saw earlier. So I want to find the right way to say this. Today, here at the hotel, there was a young lady that came to my room. Not like that. But there was a young lady that came to my room and rang the doorbell circa 7 a.m. What do you think she was there for? Housekeeping. Why did she come at 7 a.m., not 11 a.m.? Why did she come at 7 a.m., not 4 a.m.? Because that's the rule. Somebody wrote down the rule that you do the rounds from 7 a.m. onwards. Any of you here who've ever been admitted to a hospital will know that every morning in the hospitals, in South Africa it's circa 7 a.m., it might be different here, but every morning at around 7 a.m., the doctors walk the wards and check on their patients. How does that happen in every single hospital, everywhere in the world? It's because those who run hospitals have written rules about how a hospital runs. They have synthesized their operations. So the question I'm asking you is, how many of you have taken the time to write the rules about how your business runs? Forget teaching someone how to do it. Just write it down, even for yourself. How does it run? Second, 43% of entrepreneurs implement growth drivers. Most businesses have 3 things that if you did them, you'd double your business. Think about what I just said here for a second. All of us here have a to-do list of 100 things. I'm willing to bet that there are 3 things that if you did them, you'd double your business. 3. But there's a to-do list of 100 things. So why do you have a to-do list of 100 things when 3 things are the real growth drivers? It's because not everything that is a to-do list is going to drive growth. So your job when you're building and scaling a business is to figure out what are the things that are going to drive growth. In fact, I am a master at this. I am a master at this. I have mastered not doing work. Work is not my job. Growth is my job. Work is what I pay people to do. You wanted a job so you can work, I give you the work. My job is growth. 3 things. If you did them, your business would double. I'll use our business again as a good example. One of the things that we know that when we do, our revenue grows is if we publish something. So if I publish an article, publish a newsletter, or write a book. If I write a book, my revenue grows. We estimate by anywhere between 80 and 94%. All I've got to do is write a book. So I get to work every day. HR wants to see me, marketing wants to see me, finance wants to see me, then those people at internal audit want to see me, then protocol wants to see me, then so-and-so wants to see me. All of this is my to-do, but it's not going to help me write a book. Do you understand? So my job is to make sure that the machine can run and these people know what to do, so I can go and focus my time on doing the work that's going to grow the business. I'm asking you in this room, how many of you here are doing the work that grows the business? Not the work that needs to be done. Please don't misunderstand me. There's work that has to get done. Then there's work that grows the business. These are not the same things. Now, if you don't get the work that needs to get done, your business will die. But if you don't do the work that grows the business, your business will also die. So what a lot of us do is you start a business, you get 2 or 3 customers. Now you are there, you are a customer service agent now. You are now servicing the customers rather than empowering people so that you can go and look for more customers. I can't tell you how important this is, especially for those of you in the room who are technical. Engineers, architects, accountants, lawyers, even the writers, the bloggers, the journalists. So many of us are guilty of this. The content creators are the worst at this. You create the content, then you're sitting there editing this thing yourself. You can't be serious. I have never created 1 second of content. Never. This is a true story. I've never picked up my phone and said I'm creating content. I've never done it. And I will never do it. There are people who are paid to do that. Then there are people who are paid to edit it. And then there are people who are paid to publish it. And then there are people who are paid to manage the comments once it's been published. It's not my job. It's work. So I'm simply making the point that in the job you're doing every day, just ask yourself the question, is this going to grow the business or just deliver the business? I'm cognizant of time. 3rd, build on insights. I wish I had more time to spend on this, but I don't. Build your business on insights, not instinct. Man, I wish I had more time I could do it just an entire masterclass just on this. You know when you get started as an entrepreneur, because this is what makes us entrepreneurs? When we get started as entrepreneurs, is we have instinct, right? Like a gut instinct. Like if I stand on Entebbe Road and I start selling a certain product, people are going to buy it. How do I know? I don't know. I didn't do market research. I just feel it in my guts. And I'm looking at all of these people going up and down and I go, if I stood here and I sold something, people would buy it. It's my instinct. The problem is, then I stand there and I start selling it, and indeed people buy it, and now I'm making money, and then I come to a conference, and then people say, what do you do? And I go, I'm an entrepreneur. They go, really? I say, yeah. What do you do? I sell coffee on Entebbe Road. It's a great business. Then I go, but you know, I'm selling so much, I want to open a 2nd store, 3rd store, 4th store. Where do I open the stores? What do I do again? I follow my instinct. Terrible advice. You start a business on instinct. You scale a business on insight. Now, how can you scale on insight if you have no information? If you have no data, no sources from which you draw data and information? The answer is you can't. Which brings me to the point I'm trying to make. I said it to Lydia just now in our meeting. Please make a note of this in your head. Metric, M-E-T-R-I-C, that matter. Just make a note of that. Metric that matter. Not everything that is measurable matters. Not everything that matters can be measured. So what you want to be able to do as an entrepreneur is to figure out what is the stuff that matters, and to focus your attention on measuring the things that matter. It might be that the thing that matters for you in your business is repeat customers. So how many of the customers that I sell to first time come back? It might be that the thing that matters for you in your business is how many customers come from different territories. From the hinterlands, for instance, of Kampala. How many customers come from outside of downtown? But you need to know what those metrics are. I'm willing to bet most of us in this room don't have 3 metrics that we measure that matter. I'm willing to bet. So I run by the rule of 3. What does that mean? Every function in the business that I need to measure, I measure no more than 3 things. But if we need to measure, for instance, our business and our business plan, it's revenue, EBITDA, cost of capital. Those are the 3 things I worry myself about. But if I need to measure our YouTube channel, which is now on 940,000 subscribers, we'll hit 1 million subscribers before the end of the year. What are the things that I measure my YouTube team on? So people think I measure my YouTube team on the number of subscriber growth. I actually don't. I measure my YouTube team on the number of minutes people watch our shorts. Listen to what I just said. Number of minutes people watch our shorts. Not number of minutes people watch our videos. The content creators know what I'm talking about. Because we've learned that what drives subscribers is the number of minutes people watch on shorts. It's that video when you're on YouTube and you watch 30 seconds and you swipe up. It's that TikTok version, right? That's the stuff we do. You want to know why? Because I know the more minutes people watch on shorts, the more subscribers I get. The more subscribers I get, the more minutes they view. The more minutes I view, the more money I make. So I'm not measuring the money coming from my YouTube. I'm measuring the number of minutes people watch my shorts. I'm measuring the input, not the outcome. 3 simple metrics. I'm challenging you to go into your business and to find the 3 simple metrics that if you did them, these are the things that your business would grow. And then lastly, you have to align incentives. This is so key. Again, not enough time to get into it, but it's so key. Some of us come here, we change plans, and then we don't align incentives with our people. Your people don't behave by what you tell them. They behave by what you incentivize. How am I doing? Okay? All right. Let me go down on this a little bit. My kids are on school holiday now, right? They started school holiday. My oldest started school holiday, I want to say June? No, Tuesday this week. My youngest went on school holiday yesterday. My daughter today. They're on school holiday. What is the problem with having children on school holidays? What do you imagine? Yeah? They are loitering. They are everywhere. Don't tell them I said this, but they're a nuisance. And every 5 minutes is, Daddy, can I please have, Daddy, can I please, just go away. So, when I was growing up, my mother used to give me these things. You might have heard of them to the young people in the room. They're called chores. Chores are tasks that you perform without incentive. Is your job. We had chores when I was growing up. My mother was the queen of chores. My mother wrote a PhD thesis on how to do chores. My mother was so good at chores that she would give you a chore that would inspire you for the year. To never ever want to get on my mother's bad side. The one year, so the home where I grew up with, this beautiful long driveway with these like long fern trees. You know those Christmas trees? But massive long fern trees. So when you drove into our home, it had this like cocooning effect. Beautiful long driveway. And my father had just passed and was school holiday. And my mother decided we needed chores. So what does my mother do? She goes to the local quarry and she buys these small limestones. And she says, between my brother and I, that we have the role and responsibility of filling the driveway with these limestones. Now, what might you imagine is the problem, comrades? Well, when the truck arrived to deliver these stones, it delivered them in a mound, one big mound. And my mother doesn't believe in automation, which means we manually had to move the stones from the mound into a wheelbarrow, wheel them up the driveway, drop them off, and then level them. I challenge you to try this. First, it's a stone. So you take a shovel, and you take the shovel, and you jab it into the mound. It's not sand. The shovel's not going in. It's going to stop. Then you've got to, so you get a little bit and drop it. And that's just to fill up the wheelbarrow. Then you've got to walk these arduous meters to get to the other end, because if you're intelligent, you don't want to drop the stones at the beginning, because then you have to go over the stones to get to the end. My mother had us do this. Anthony, I think I was like 15. It took us 2 weeks. I say us, my younger brother and I, and the little bastard didn't do any work. You know the youngest ones are always shit. He didn't do any work. He just sat there doing commentary. You're doing it wrong. Footsack. And then he would go into the house and cry about, I don't know, breaking a nail. And then he gets to get the rest of the day off. That's why he's like 4 complexions lighter than me. You see? Yes. So I don't like light people. Where are the light people? All of you are bastards, you light people. We don't want you here. Anyway, so my brother and I do this for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, my mother comes to us and feels a new sense of inspiration. And she says, I don't like these limestones. I'm going to buy some cement and crete so that we can lay off. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this 2 weeks ago? So my kids are on holiday, and I'm thinking, how do I give my kids their limestone? It's such a beautiful thing about being a parent. How do I punish these little bastards? How do I show them I love them with some pain? So we develop a system of chores. My oldest knows he's got to water the garden. He's got to tend to the outside. We've got a beautiful monster bully in the house, big dog. She's about this big. Her name is Allegro. You know you've made it as a black person when you give dogs human names. And so we've got a beautiful monster bully called Allegro. And his job is to make sure that he cleans after Allegro's poop, that he cleans the pool, that the pool is sparkling and clean. His job is the outside. My daughter, she's got her set of chores. My youngest, his chore is to be a chore to his brother and sisters. But how do I get them to do this? Not by putting down what the instruction is, but by creating a system of incentives so that when they do the thing, there's an incentive. In our home, we run a point-based system, and 100 points convert to a certain amount of money, and they get that amount of money in credits on their bank account. And when they withdraw that money from the bank account, I charge a 20% tax. This is true. I'm not even lying. That's actually how it works. I'm not even lying. So my kids have an incentive system. My daughter knows, or my son knows, that if she washes the dishes and my son dries, these are different credits. The person who washes the dishes gets 35 credits. The person who dries them only gets 25 credits. Why? Because drying is easier than washing. They're well aware of this. They're also aware that if they wash their own school socks, they get 40 credits. If the maid washes it, they lose 20 credits. So we'll ask the helper in the house, who washed the socks, you or the kids? My son knows that if he goes to school with shoes that are not polished, he loses 20 points. And the number of points converts to credits, credits converts to money. When they withdraw from their bank account, I take a 20% tax. So I don't get my kids to do the right thing by telling them. I get them to do the right thing by creating a system of incentives that drives the behavior. Are we following each other? Yes? Right. Hands up in the room if you have a system of incentives for the people that work for you. Do you see what the problem might be? So maybe one of the things you want to do when you leave here is to ask yourself, who's in my team and how do I incentivize them? Now, the reason it says align incentives is because you also have to make sure the incentive drives the business goal that you want. That the incentive drives the business goal that you want. I'm going to skip over this a little bit because we're chasing time. I'm going to skip over this a little bit. And I want to get to this. That's okay. This is just me showing you that I over-prepare as one does. Great. So what do you need to do when you leave the business? Let's talk about some tools that you can use in your companies when you leave here. What do you need to do? First, any of you here who've done the business model canvas? Hands up in the room? Right. So the first thing you're going to do, those of you who've not, is you're going to go and do a canvas for your business. What does a canvas look like? It looks something like this. It forces you to ask yourself the question, right? And you'll notice some of the work we would have done earlier. Who are the key partnerships you need for your business? What are the key activities you need to perform? And what resources do you need to perform those activities? If you do that properly, that's a day's worth of work, I assure you, if you do it properly. Another thing I like to advise people to do, never take a model and complete it in a day. You need to take a model and do half of it, then go to bed. You ever notice how when you go to bed and you're lying and you're staring at the ceiling, things tend to crystallize? Sometimes it happens to me when I'm in the shower alone, where like things just come to me and they crystallize. You missed the alone part. But what I encourage people to do is to always do a third or half of something, leave it overnight, let it simmer, and then come back to it. I think you guys here have nyama choma. I know in Kenya they have this. In South Africa we call it the braai. But you know that the meat that is cooked or barbecued over fire always tastes better the next day. Doing model work is a lot like this. The next day, your brain is a lot clearer. So you want to start with key partnerships, activities, resources, value propositions, customer relationships, segments, channels. You would have done a lot of this in that business model. So the first thing I'm challenging you here to do when you leave is to go and do your business model canvas. The second is to think about your business from a lean startup model. This is Eric Ries's work. And he says you've got to think about 3 things when you're building a business. What you've got to think about is the idea, and from that idea, the product, and from that product, what data are you going to collect? This is especially true if you're still early. What's the idea? And between the idea and the product, you want to spend the least amount of time building it. Between the product and the data, you want to sell the product and then measure what information you're getting. To be clear, you need to know what you're going to measure. And then lastly, you want to think about between the idea and the data, how do you make that process as lean as possible so that more data you get, the better your ideas become. The more data you get, the better your ideas become. Let's just get a sense in the room. How many of us are still paying attention? How many of us here are still getting value? How many of us are not going to put up their hands no matter what I say? I could see it. I could see it. Yeah, it's because you're racist, you. Yeah. And then, let's talk a bit about scale now. Any economists in the room? Where are the economists in the room? This is me really trying to impress the economists. This is a long-run average costs graph. It basically shows what we call in business the economies of scale. When you hear, as you did earlier, from some of the other panel members, some of them kept talking about economies of scale. In other words, you want to get to a point where you're producing a volume where your business becomes more efficient as you're producing that volume. So it's about averaging your costs. Why is this important? Creatives in the room, let's come back together. Take the right hand. Creatives, over our chest, repeat after me. I swear I will not panic. Okay, great. Creatives in the room, I prepared something to make a point. It's a series of graphs. I'm going to really simplify them. Here's what I prepared. I looked at, Anthony, you're going to love this. I looked at all of the data of mergers and acquisitions over a period of 30 years. My thesis was I wanted to prove that even big companies want to get bigger. So don't be a small business. If you didn't hear that, I'm going to say it again. Do not be a small business. Avoid it as much as you can. Did you guys have lockdown during COVID? Did you have lockdown? Right. I beg your pardon? The longest. No, I'm not going to comment here. I'm quiet. I don't want to get involved. Now, For the entrepreneurs in the room, how many of you here were asked by the government how long you wanted COVID to be? Hands up. Or how long you wanted lockdown to be? Hands up. How many of you here were asked if you want lockdown? Hands up. How many of you here were told before lockdown that there was going to be a lockdown? Hands up. I promise you, you don't work in small businesses, right? My point is made. Here's why you should never run a small business. When you run a small business, nobody consults you. Think about what I just said. No one consults. In South Africa, here's what happens. The government will go and meet with the labor unions. Then they'll go and meet with the financial sector, the banks, the insurance companies. Then they'll go and meet with the other politicians. They'll even go and meet with the civic organizations, the non-profit organizations, the public benefit organizations, but they will never call a meeting with entrepreneurs. Why? Because you are so small that your individual voice doesn't matter. So, I don't know about you, I like my voice to matter. Which means my number one drive in building a business is to get bigger. Get bigger. Let's have a look at those numbers again. Let's have a look at those numbers again. Anthony, you're going to love this, man. Like, this is really impressive shit. Check this out. These are data. This is data from Statista. This is the number of acquisitions and mergers in the world between the year I was born, 1985, and last year, 2023. What do you notice? There is a constant build-up, gets to a boom, and it drops. Do you see that? Then another build-up, and it drops. Another build-up, and it drops. But you know what else you should notice? Is these booms are aligned to events you all know about. The year 2000 was that thing we call the dot-com bubble. Yes? The year 2007, the global financial crisis. Yes? The year 2017, any takers? What happened in 2017? And then what happened in 2020? COVID. Markets consolidate. That's how markets work. So you are in a market now that's about to do the same thing again. So what's your job? Get big. Get so big that you are the one buying someone or someone is buying you. But whatever you do, don't stay small. Because what this data doesn't show is that actually what happens is as big companies get bigger, small companies die at a higher rate because they can't compete. Even if I benchmark these two numbers against each other, look at 1985 to the year 2000. Only 39,000 mergers and acquisitions happened. Now watch, another period between 2002 and 2021, 58,000. More mergers and acquisitions over time. Bigger companies are buying more bigger companies and they're doing more deals. Whatever you do when you leave here, do not stay small. If you want to compare them on a like-for-like basis, it looks something like this. So what's the point? Get big. Get big. This is so important. I wish somebody told me this. I'm actually being honest here. I'm not making a joke. There's some of you in this room who look like you are very, very young. I'm talking late teens, early 20s. If somebody told me when I was your age what I'm telling you now, I would have been 10 years ago where I am today. It took me 22 years of business to figure this out. So for some of you, it's going over your heads. Take this message in. I wish. The first time I traveled to Uganda, 2007, 2008. I stayed at a small B&B somewhere. I'll never forget. The host who invited me here had traveling on a Bora Bora. That's how I know those guys live on the edge of life. I would love to see them make Top Gear Kampala. Yeah. I don't think that would go very far. So the point I'm making is this. That was the first time I came here. I wish somebody told me then what I'm telling you now. I would have approached my business the way I'm approaching it now. Now my approach in my business is get as big as possible, as quick as possible. And if I can't scale it, I don't do it. So it's not just getting into business and doing well, but it's also scaling it. It's also scaling it. Harrison, I'm sure you're going to fix that issue on the screen. I'm not sure what's going on there. So it's not just getting into business and doing well, but it's also scaling it. And scaling it is important. Now, what might scale look like? For some of us in this room, scaling your business means getting more customers. In my business, it's not just getting more customers, it's also opening businesses in more countries. So today, we've been running a whole process of looking at new markets. We've opened up in 4 new markets. And one of the things we thought about is how do we scale our business? So do I go and open a corporate office? Or do I create a product as a business and then license that business? Or do I create a license as a product and then franchise that business? These are different business models, but all of them allow me to scale. What is the biggest restaurant chain in the world? Does anybody here know? Say again? No, it's not McDonald's, it's Subway. Did you know that? Franchise. What is the one soda product that no matter where in the world you are, you'll find it on the shelves? Coca-Cola. I just had, on the way here, it's a true story, listen to this, how luck works. I'm sat at the lounge, and a guy comes to me and says, I know you. You're that guy on YouTube. I said, no, that's my good-looking twin brother. He introduces himself. It turns out he's from Nigeria. He lives in Pennsylvania in the US, and he works for Coca-Cola. So I said to him, what's your job? He says, oh, my job is I'm a process engineer for the ingredient. Now, for those of you who don't know, Coca-Cola is probably one of the most security-conscious businesses in the world, right? But his job is he's one of the process engineers for the ingredient. When you buy a Coke, those in the soda business will know this, Coca-Cola will sell into the country a concentrated ingredient. Bottlers in that country will mix the concentrated ingredient with water and a couple of other additives, and then you get the Coca-Cola product. Yes? How many Coca-Cola ingredients manufacturers in all of Africa? 55 countries, 1.4 billion people. How many do you think do they have manufacturing? How many factories do you think they have making this concentrate in all of Africa? 2. They're in all 55 countries. Eh? You know, there are countries in the world where you can't get airtime, but you can get Coke. 2. One in Swaziland and the other one in Egypt. From the bottom and from the top, they supply the whole continent. And he says, yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's Coke. He says, but you know what most people don't know? He says, the genius of Coke is not that we own Coke. It's that we own everything people don't know is Coke. It's like, what do you mean? He says, we'll come into a market and we'll watch like how you guys consume product. So for instance, if you, and he was saying, it's like here in Africa, guys like ginger beer. So a lot of people don't know, we own several ginger beer brands in markets. He says in the US, there's a big health conscious thing at the moment. So you know what we do? We will buy health conscious products, businesses, and we'll sell them. That's their job. So what they do is they allow small companies to get big, and then they buy them. Does that make sense? They allow small companies to get big, and then they buy them. It's something else for you to think about. That's a different growth story from a Coke perspective, right? Think about, let me think, Pepsi. Is Pepsi here? Right. So what's the Pepsi model? Oh, I see. That was tense for you guys, eh? They're like, hey, what's happening? Okay, so what's the Pepsi growth model? Now, you don't have to tell us. From your perspective, I don't want you to breach any non-disclosures. But from an outsider's perspective, Coca-Cola goes, we want to own drinks. Pepsi goes, we want to own something on the meal all day. So Pepsi has something you can buy in the morning. They have something you can buy for lunch. They have something you can buy for dinner. Different growth strategies, similar market. So what you want in your business is to be very intentional about scale. That was a good save. That was a very good save. Very, very good save. You're welcome. So how do you manage this? Let's be clear, you have to take risks. I like thinking about risk and risk probability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, this is the model of risk management that I use. You can think for yourself if this model works for you. But I use this when I've got to make decisions like, do we want to litigate on something? Say we've got a particular issue. Do I want to go to court or do I want to go to arbitration? Or it might be something like we want to open in a new market and we're looking at the regulation. Do we want to get an in-country partner or do we want to open up in that country ourselves? Or it might be that I've got a specific role in the business. That's a very sensitive role. It might be, do I hire somebody from in-country or do we hire somebody who's virtual? All of these are different decisions, but I basically use the same risk matrix, and here's how it works. On the vertical is you're measuring probability for the thing happening. On the horizontal, you're measuring the impact of it if it happens. And if the probability of it happening is low and the impact is low, then it's a low risk. Would you agree? If the probability of it happening is low and the impact is medium, it's also low risk because the probability is low. But if the probability is low but the impact is high, we classify it as medium. So what's the possibility it might happen? Very low. What would be the impact if it did happen? Very high. Let's think about this venue we're in as a good example. In South Africa, we've had power challenges. We don't have them anymore because we stopped exporting power to you guys. That was a joke. Off to the truth and jest. But this room that we're sat in, the probability of the power going off is very low. But the impact, if it happens, would be high, right? So what would the hotel do that put in place backup power? Because they've estimated that it's a medium risk. If the probability is medium, impact is low, it's low. Probability is medium, impact is medium, medium. Probability is medium, impact is high, red medium. This is my model. Then I go, impact is low, probability is high, impact is low, still low. What you should begin to notice is everything that's a low impact is low. What happens if the probability is high but the impact is medium? It's medium. And what happens if the probability is high and the impact is high? It's high. So when we do risk modeling, risk management, we kind of like to put things in this metric. Then we try to make decisions that we think are going to work in particular for our space. Work in particular for our space. When you leave here, entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs, I challenge you to use this model. So I said, pen and paper, we're going to be doing a lot of writing. It wouldn't be a PowerPoint and a keynote presentation without a McKinsey model. This is my favorite McKinsey model. It's called the 7S model. Anybody here who's done like an MBA or advanced management program will know what I'm talking about. They teach this model a lot. This is a model about how do you embed change when you get into your business. In fact, even in building your business, you might want to think about following this model. So let's break it down. The first part of it is you might want to ask yourself, what is the strategy for your business? This is the direction and the goals that you have for your organization. And for every single strategy, you need the business to work a certain way. What is the structure? The actual organization that you're running. And for all strategies and all structures, you need systems. That's the thing I was saying, write it down. Processes, systems, write down what actually happens. If you do this and you do it correctly, these 3 parts will take you no less than maybe 6 weeks if you do it properly. That's if you don't ChatGPT it. So in our firm, every 18 months, we'll review strategy. This is the model we use. Are we still going in the direction we were going? That's the strategy. And if we're still going in that direction, what business can get us there? That's the structure. And if that business can get us there, how do we make it function? That's system. Then, you want to focus yourself on the skills. What are the skills that you need to make sure that you deliver on the strategy for your company? I want to find I think last time I was here, who was with us last time I was here? Might be a few of you? Okay. So last time I was here, I shared an interesting story. I've got a young man who runs my social media. I've never met him. He's been running my social media now for 3 years. And in fact, I was supposed to be meeting with him today. Today's the 5th, right? I was supposed to be meeting with him today at our office in Dubai, but I couldn't because I'm here. I've never met him. He started working for me just after 2021-ish, beginning of 2022. And here's how this young man and I come to know each other. He follows me on social media, likes my content. He reaches out and says, dude, I love your content. Do you mind if I take your content and post it on my page? I said, sure, no problem. He takes my content, he starts posting it. Man, it looks better on his page than it does on my page. I'm like, who's this guy? And then his page starts growing faster than my page. I'll give you guys an example. Like, I'm just about to hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube. I've had my YouTube channel, I think, since 2011. He started his YouTube channel 18 months ago. He's on 1.4 million subscribers. No, it's not fair. It's because he's white. It's racism. So anyway, so he posts my stuff. The stuff looks good. So I reach out to him. I'm like, hey, who are you? He tells me who he is. I'm like, where are you from? He's from some small former Soviet country in Europe. And he's just a kid. He's like early 20s. Very smart. So I say, hey, you do me a favor. So take my content, edit it the way you're editing it, but post it on my page first. And then after 2 days, you can post it on your page. He goes, sure. But to post it on your page, I need your access. Yeah, I know. I'm like, so you need my username and my password? He says, yes. I go, Chifai. Aye. Username, password. That's like asking for access to my WhatsApp. Aye. But I've got to take the risk. Remember, I've never met him. We haven't even done a Teams call. I don't know if I'm talking to a human being or an AI. So I send him all of my social media, username and password. I don't tell my risk people because they would have lost their minds. I just send it to him. He goes in and he accesses my stuff and he starts posting. When he started posting, my LinkedIn was on 60,000 followers. We just hit 1 million subscribers on my LinkedIn. When he started posting, my YouTube was on 160,000 subscribers. We're just about to hit 1 million on YouTube. When he started posting, my Instagram was on 400,000 subscribers. We're on 2.4 million. When he started posting, I didn't have a TikTok. He created a TikTok and now we're on 1.4 million followers. But listen, I've never met this kid. I've never met him. What point am I making? He has a particular set of skills that allows me to deliver on my strategy. The skills he has nothing to do with the geography he's based in. It's the skills. So what a lot of us do is we will have the strategy, but you can't find the skills. Strategy without skills is wishful thinking. Skills without strategy is directionless. It's kind of the reason why the South African soccer team is better than the Uganda soccer team. We have strategy, we have skills. You guys just have 11 guys running around, looking for a leather object called a ball somewhere. As a leader, ask yourself, what style do you want to use in leading your people? How do you create shared value? And then, of course, where you're going to get stuff. Take the model down. I will leave the model with the good people who've invited me here at PSFU. And for any of you here who want a copy, I will leave it with yourselves, and you will find a way to disseminate it to the people who've attended. So what you want to make sure of is that you're following those 7 S's. This is the last bit. 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 Last bit. There's a book I want to recommend to everybody here. This is the what to do when you leave here. It's a book. Hold on. Why is it doing that? It's a book called The 90 Days. Okay? It's called The 90 Days. It's a really, really good book. I'm not sure why the image is not showing. But here's what this book says. It's written by a man called Watkins. He says, here's the program to put in place for the next 3 months. Now, here's why I brought this specific knowledge. Because I'd like to challenge you to try to do these things between Jan and March next year. So what have we covered in our time today? We spoke about how to do a business model. We spoke about how to do strategy, put in place structure, processes, systems. But for a lot of us in this room who are entrepreneurs, here's what's true. Have you ever done the work, but the business doesn't change? Has this ever happened to you? Because you know that there's a difference between cognitively knowing something and getting something to actually get done. For me, this is my deepest frustration, that I can go away and we can think as a management team about our strategy for the business, come back and tell the rest of the business, but they do tomorrow what they did yesterday. So we want to ask ourselves the question, how do we embed change? Make sure that the thing we want to get done gets done. So for the next 3 months, beginning of the year until March, try this. The first thing you want to do in your 90-day process is to prepare yourself. So gather as much information as you can about the market that you're in, the space you're operating in, the competitors you're competing with. Just prepare you. The second thing you want to do is you want to accelerate as much of your learning as possible. What does that mean? All this information that you've got, try and optimize that information and understand it as quickly as possible. Notice you haven't started doing any work in the company, you're still doing work on you. The third thing you want to do is you want to start to match your strategy to your situation. And you can do that because you just spend time analyzing your market. So now you can go, the strategy that I developed, does it actually match the situation I'm in? I have a strategy to export product out of Uganda. Okay, great. Does it match the environment you're in? Can you get export? I have a strategy to import product. Okay, great. Can you secure Forex? So now you want to start to match the situation. And then the most important part, a lot of people get this wrong. You come up with a strategy, you go to your team, you tell your team's like, this is great, we're excited, let's do it. And then you miss this part, and here's the part. You have to create a culture of early wins. What's that mean? Don't wait for the big win. Take the small wins and celebrate them. Let people see the momentum of the work that you are doing. And show them those early wins. Go, hey, we just got this new customer here, or we just opened another branch here, or we just got another product here. Small wins, celebrate them. Hey, we just grew our YouTube channel from 20 to 50. This is great. Celebrate those early wins. Just these 4 steps. Next thing you want to do, sit down with your leaders and negotiate success. Very hard to do, but very necessary. Negotiate success. What does negotiating success mean? I sit down with my leaders in the company and we negotiate what success looks like. So what does success look like for you? What does success look like for me? How do we make sure that we get success to work for both of us? For those of you here in mature businesses, very important. Notice this thing comes up again. Align incentives. You have to achieve alignment. Then you build your team. How do you build your team? Make sure you evaluate correctly, align correctly, understand people's strengths and weaknesses. I love saying to especially entrepreneurs, never fire someone for a job you didn't hire them. Never fire somebody for a job you didn't hire them to do. Entrepreneurs are very guilty of this. So here's what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs know what I'm talking about. Here's what we're guilty of. We do this. So I start a company and I'm a one-man show. And then I need an assistant or somebody to help me. So I hire my assistant. What is her job? To help me. But because she's my assistant, I also make her sit at reception. But I hired her to be what? My assistant, not to be the receptionist. Which means, if I hired her to be an assistant and she's a lousy receptionist, I shouldn't fire her. Don't fire people for a job you didn't hire them to do. Now, what a lot of us do, especially those of you here who run smaller companies, is you have a lot of people who are dabblers. They do a lot. You have an accounting team, which is one person. And they do receivables, payables, non-payables, no money in the bank account. Then they do a little bit of legal. They do your VAT returns, your PAYE, your corporate income tax. And then they're your bookkeeper and your management accountant. But you only hired them to do receivables. Then they submit a tax return incorrectly and you want to fire them. That's not what you hired them to do. You hired them to do receivables, not to do taxes. Don't fire people for a job you didn't hire them to do. This is why aligning is so important and building your team is so important. Then, second last, create alliances. Create alliances. I know this is being streamed live and some of my team members are watching this, so I'm very worried about what I'm about to say. But let me not use myself as an example. I'll try another example. The greatest football manager of all time is a guy called Sir Alex Ferguson. He used to support this terrible team called Man United. It's not his fault. He managed this team called Man. I mean, if he was a smart man, he would have managed Arsenal. But you can't win everything in life. No, I don't care. Go argue with your ancestors. I don't care. Arsenal is the best team in the world. There we go. Look at them. It's true. Yeah. We don't care. We don't care. So anyway, Liverpool. I said team. I said team. I didn't say a bunch of Neanderthals running around. I said team. You will never walk alone. You are walking alone now. I joke. So you know what Alex Ferguson says in his book about leadership? He says, every single player in his team thought that they had a special relationship with him that no other player had. What does that mean? It means he would spend time with each player individual and say, you know, you're my chosen one. You're the special one. You're the one. Then when they leave, he goes, forget that one. You know, you are my chosen one. Because when you give people something to aspire for, they will meet it. If you say to somebody, you're amazing, you're incredible, and I believe in you, they will be amazing and incredible and believe in you. And that's how you create alliances. Everybody in your business must be aligned to you and to your strategy. And then the last thing is to just do this over the first 90 days. If you just do this over the first 90 days, guys, you're going to win. I'm done. So I'm going to leave you guys with some bonus material. I studied under him when I was doing my MBA. How do you know somebody has an MBA? They'll tell you. Yeah, they'll tell you. I have to tell people, I did my MBA in the UK and I paid in pounds. It was a painful experience. I started off wealthy. I ended up not wealthy. That was a joke, but okay, it's fine. By the way, what's the Uganda shilling exchange rate to the pound? Do you guys even count? Yesterday, I ordered something in my room and the lady brought me the bill. And she gave me the bill. It said 26,000. I was like, 26,000 dollars? It's like, no, shillings. I was like, oh, wow. Oh, God is good. God is good. And then I calculated it. It said 16 cents. No, I'm joking. I'm just joking. You know, you guys, you should just scrap the last three zeros. Just remove them. Just take them off. Take them off. It's called rebasing. It's allowed. This incredible guy called John Cotter, he wrote a book called Accelerate. And he says if you want to accelerate transformation in your business, you've got to do these 8 things. He calls it the 8-step model for leading change. It's a structural approach that is implemented to leading change in your organization. Here are the 8 things. The first thing you need to do when you get back to your own teams is you need to increase the urgency of your goals. Increase the urgency of your goals. What does this mean? It means your team and your people need to understand that the goal you have given them has to get done now. Now. You have to increase urgency. Have to increase urgency. The second thing you've got to do is you've got to elicit an executive sponsor for your program. What does that mean? Somebody in your team who is going to drive the changes that you want and who will be there to sponsor those changes when you are not in the room. I feel led to share something here today, so let me share this. I think, by God's grace, I think I've done okay. I've done well. I've done well. But you know the truth of it, guys, is actually my success isn't my success. This is the truth. My success is the success